kicks off a fun little earring series where I will be creating 2 pairs of earrings in each video, each using a different jewelry making technique. In this first video, I'm working with 22 gauge craft wire from Softflex and beautiful beads from their Surf's Up Design Challenge Kit. I'll show you how to step-by-step use wire to create linked components for 2 coastal inspired designs. So if you're ready to bring a little beachy flair into your jewelry box, grab your tools and let's get started. Alrighty, so I'm going to first make my starfish earring. So for that, I've got the pewter plated craft wire out on this one, and again it's the 22 gauge. You can probably use whatever gauge you have available, so if you have 20 gauge or if you have 24, it'll probably work as well. So I'm going to leave the beads. I'm going to warm up the wire first, so I'm just moving it back and forth in my fingers a couple of times just to kind of get the wire warmed up. I'm going to leave all the wire on the spool itself, so that way I use up a little bit less wire in general. That just makes it easier for me to do it that way. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to string on the beads. So I'm going to put the oval bead on first, then we put the little squared L on there, and then we put our rondelle on after. So there's that. Now we're going to make just a simple little beaded loop. So at about 2 inches or so, somewhere around in there, and about halfway down my round nose pliers that I have, I'm going to put the wire in between, and then I'm going to push backwards to make it be a 90-degree angle. Then I'm going to make it to where my wire is now in between. So that way all I have to do is just go back over the top like this. Now we're going to switch and make the wire to where you can actually move it around down on the bottom jaw. And then I'm going to continue with the round motion of the small portion of the wire to the back, so that way you end up with a little loop like this when you take it off. It looks something similar to that. Now we're going to make a rounded loop. So we're going to continue this around, and I'm going to wrap around. I think I did it 3 times at the top. I think the bottom actually had a couple of extra loops, but that's fine. So to do the rounded portion, just grab that little small portion. You could do this with another set of pliers if you need to, and then just ever so slightly and carefully wrap it around until you got 3 loops around, and that's pretty much 3 loops. I'm going to squish these a little bit if I can, because that first loop, there we go, see, that looks much better. So you can kind of squish them together if you need to make them look a little bit nicer. And then take your wire cutters and then flush side towards the item. Just don't cut your fingers. Get your fingers out of the way. And then, whoa, don't cut the whole thing. There we go. And then always hold on to your little piece, your little extra piece of wire that you just cut off, because there's always that potential that that's going to go flying. I did that on my practice piece, on this piece right here, so it went flying across the desk. So now we want to kind of pinch in that little section that is sitting there, just so it doesn't bother anybody or get in the way. And I'm kind of moving the wire around a little bit too, which is fine. You can always straighten it out. Just like that, so you can just move it around a little bit more and get it all straightened out again. Now, while I'm here, I'm going to go ahead and smush the loop that I created in between my pliers. That's just kind of work hardening it. So I'm just smushing it around really good. So that way the loop will hopefully stay as a loop. I'm going to push all my beads down to the loop itself. And then I'm going to flip this around so it's easier to show you. And I'm going to cut off, I think the first time I did this, I think I did 4 finger widths, so I think I'm only going to do 3. And I'm going to cut the wire at 3 finger widths there. And then move the spool out of the way. And then now, this is how I gauged where I'm going to make my loop. I hold my chain nose pliers up against the bead that's there. So this, in this case, it'll be the round or the oval bead that's sitting there. And I put my round nose pliers on, or chain nose pliers, until the tip of the pliers is at the edge, on the other edge of the bead, so on the left hand side of the bead. So when the bead is sitting like this, they're just about even on the left hand side over here. And then I just push this over the pliers. Then I grab my round nose pliers and about halfway or so. So the loops are going to be about the same. I'm going to do the same process. Go up and over until it touches the beads on the other side. Then you switch jaws like that. Then you continue your loop around like that. Now, before you forget, like I did the first time I did this and I had to undo my loop, we have to add our starfish. So I'm going to go ahead and just add it on. It doesn't matter at this point in time. I have to open this a little bit, I think. But it doesn't matter at this point in time which side it's on, because when we add the ear wire, we'll fix that. Alrighty, so add your little charm if you wish to use the charm. And then now I'm going to hold that loop just like we did with the other one, and then wrap around in the same fashion. Now I'm still really new at doing loops and working with wire. So I'm getting there, but my loops sometimes are not the prettiest. But that is fine, because I will get to a point to where it'll be much easier for me to be able to use that. And to be able to do wire, or use wire and stuff like that in my products. So this one is actually really close to the bead. I may not be able to squish it very easily. Yeah, we'll just leave it. It is what it is. It's handmade. And then we'll come back with the wire cutters, and then up against the edge there, cut off the excess, and then use your chain nose and kind of smush down that little portion. And then now you have your little beaded link with your starfish on it. Now, as luck has had it, I actually did my loops in the correct direction. I always do that incorrectly, so I don't know how I've done it twice now in the right direction. But you want your top loop to be facing you, like this, and then you want your bottom loop to be away from you, so you want it to be on its side. So when you put everything on the side, then you've got the bottom loop facing you that way. But you want this one to sit like this, so that way your starfish is sitting in the correct direction. And then all you have to do is just add your ear wire to the front. And then since these are the ear wires, that all you have to do is just kind of pinch that top portion closed, you now have a finished earring. And that took about, teaching-wise, it took about 8 minutes. But actual working-wise, when you're not teaching, it took about 5 minutes for me to make that. So there's your first pair of earrings. To our second pair of earrings, which I'm calling this one Tropical Wagon. And these beads right here kind of remind me of like a wagon wheel, so that's why I called it a wagon something or another. So I figured Tropical Wagon would be a good name for these. So that's what we're going to make here. So I've got the gold plated wire on this one that I'm going to be using. So I'm going to, there again, leave it on the spool. So we're going to figure out where the end is. There it is. And then just get yourself some moved around, and then warm it up like we did the other one. And just move it back and forth between your fingers, 3 or 4 times, something like that. You just want to get the wire warm so it's easier to move, easier to maneuver and do things with. Alright, and then we're going to load on. I'm going to go from top to bottom this time, so that way we're going to start off making our little coil down here at the end. So we want to make sure that this bead is the last bead that we put on. So the first thing we're going to put on is our bead cap, and then our rondelle, so that way the bead cap is hugging the rondelle, and then your second bead cap like that. So that way you have your rondelle with your bead caps being hugged by it. Then we're going to go and increase and a decrease. We're going to start with our 15, our 11, and our 8. And that's just to add some extra color. There's really no rhyme or reason why I chose to use seed beads in this one, other than just to add a little extra color. Then we're going to put our little wagon wheel bead on there. Then we're going to go a decrease. So 8, then 11, then a 15. And then we're going to end off with putting our round turquoise bead on there. And I like this one because it's got a little bubble there in the bead itself. So that's kind of neat. It makes it look neat and different, and there's a little bit of a, I don't know, it's just different. It's neat. I like that. Okay, moving on. So now we're going to make this little swirly thing down here. So to do that, we're going to start with our round nose pliers. At the very tip of the round nose pliers, you want to make sure that you're not feeling anything on the edge. And you know what? I'm going to flesh cut that. I don't know if that's flesh cut or not. So I'm just going to cut off just a little small portion of it. Okay, that feels better. So right at the very edge of your round nose pliers, you want to make sure that you're not feeling the wire when you rub your finger across it like that. And then just make just one little itty-bitty small loop until it turns around and it touches on the other side. And then this is when I have a hard time turning the wires so you can see what I'm doing. So there is that. Now to continue this, you want to grab a hold of the wire, and you want to just continue to wrap it like this. So you can either do it that way, or I actually found that it was somewhat easy for me to continue to just wrap. You just want to make sure that it's wrapping on top of itself and it's not wrapping in like a big huge coil, or you don't want to make a cone is what you're trying not to do. You want it to look like a spiral. So you want to make sure you're not doing a cone. So sometimes starting it off like that and then grabbing it and then continue to twirl. I may have to grab my chain nose pliers here in a second because it's slipping out of the round nose pliers. Alrighty, so I have the coil started, so I'm going to continue to do that until my coil comes back till the beginning of the coil ends up over here touching on this side over here. So I'm going to continue to coil around, and then that way I know that my coils are about the same size. And of course this is not working very easily for me this time. It worked just fine when I was making it. I was like, oh, this will be perfect. I'll be able to teach this. And now it's not working. Okay, now we're kind of moving a little bit. And as I'm going, I'm kind of smushing at the same time, so I'm kind of work hardening it at the same time. Okay, so now we have the beginning of the coil there in the center is right up against where we're basically sitting at right now. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my chain nose pliers, and just at the very tip right there, put the pliers up against the coil, and then I'm going to push backwards like this and make myself a little bit of a notch, so that way this last bead can sit straight, essentially. When you push it down like that, then you have your little coil down on the bottom. So that's how I did that part. Now for the other part up here at the top, I did actually leave myself quite a bit of room on this one, so I'm going to cut off 4 finger widths of this one. So make sure to cut the wire, not your finger, as Becky always says. Now on this one, I also did it slightly different than the first earring. I used my flat nose pliers. Now if you don't have flat nose pliers, you can still do it the same way that I did it in the last clip, where you put these up here and you just line them up, line your chain nose pliers up to the left hand side of your beads if you're right-handed, right hand side of your beads if you're left-handed, and then fold over and so on and so forth. Well, this, with the flat nose pliers, it's the same width all the way through. So I thought, okay, I'll use these next just in case somebody has one of these and it's a little bit easier for them to hold. So same process, just grab a hold of your wire and then fold over just like that. So that's the top view of it. Then grab your round nose pliers. Now this is going to be quite a bigger of a loop, and actually I think I only went halfway, so I'm going to go halfway again because I'm pretty sure that's what I did last time, was I only did about halfway like that. And then you're going to move your wire up over the pliers, change your pliers to where it is your wires on the bottom jaw now, and then continue that loop towards the back. And then you should have something that looks similar to that. Now we just need to finish our coil. And this is where I was saying in the first clip where I had a rather large amount of wraps around the wire itself. I was like, well, it ends up being kind of a large amount, but you know what, I'm going to do it anyway. So you just do this same thing, just grab a hold of the wire. You can use another set of pliers if you need to. And just go slow if you're new at it, like I am. I'm just taking my time and just wrapping around and making sure I don't have any of my loops overlapping each other. That's typically what happens with me when I first do loops, is I end up overlapping my loops. If that's the case, just unwind and then do it again. It will happen from time to time. Even those that have been doing wire working for years will sometimes have just that little bit of a glitch. And that's all you have to do. So I'm going to do, I think, one more wrap. Like I said, this is a huge amount of wraps, but I thought, you know what, I'm still new at this, and it makes it kind of look different, neat. You don't see that very often because not too many people do that many wraps on their loops. I'm like, you know what, I like it, and that's all that matters. So our loops are about the same length. Then you just cut off like we did in the beginning, flush side towards the product. Just hold on to the end of it, cut that off, then use your chain nose pliers and tuck in that little part that is sticking out. Now we want to make sure that this loop right here is in line with our coil down here in the bottom. And see how you can kind of see how mine's a little crooked right there? All you have to do is straighten it up. But we want to make sure that the loop and the coil are facing the correct, or facing in the same direction. So they're both facing you. So I'm going to correct this just a little bit. So I'm going to grab a hold of the loop and the coil, and then I'm going to twist and make sure they're both facing in the right way. The coil down here in the bottom was facing just a little bit this way, so I wanted to get that fixed. So now I'm going to use some lever back ear wires because these are a little bit bigger of a bead. Trying to find the notch. There it is. Okay, the open notch. I didn't want to open it in the wrong way. So you just open that to the side, then you put this on, and then you close the lever back little portion. Oh, if you don't want to do this part, if you don't want to add it to the lever back that way, you can always add the ear wire to the loop prior to doing the coil, like we did with the Starfish when we added the charm. You can always do it that way too. Oh, that's not closed all the way. Okay, that looks better. So now you have your second pair of earrings completed, as well as the other pair. And here we go. In about 20 minutes or so, you have 2 new pairs of earrings. We've got our Starfish earrings, then we have our Tropical Wagon earrings. So I hope you had as much fun wire wrapping as I had in this video. So stay tuned for my next one in this mini-series, where I will explore how to use a different jewelry making technique to make 2 more pairs of earrings. If you enjoyed the tutorial, don't forget to hit that like button, the subscribe button, and hit that notification bell so that way you'll be notified the next time I come out with a new video. Thanks again, guys. I'll see you on the next one. Bye now.